So every year that I could save is something that I could devote more towards the GMAT prep. So Pace here, I think, is one of the best features that we have on the eGMAT platform, wherein before every course or before every topic, you're asked to give a diagnostic quiz, and the AI sort of assesses whether you are, comfortable with the concept. It's only when it sort of helps you bypass those courses and you can move on to the next topic, essentially, right? It, as the name suggests, it helps you sort of solidify your concept, and it sort of reinforces the point that you have learned the concept, but it's trying to apply them in a time constraint and do it in a manner where you are crunched with time. Absolutely. So I think first of all, never stick to a question. If you're not able to solve them, let's say in 2 to 3 minutes, I think it's absolutely essential that you mark the answer and move on to the next one, because it's gonna hurt you a lot in the later part of the exam when you'll actually have to rush through.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another debrief session with me. My name is Dhruv, and I'm one of the strategy experts and mentors here at eGMAT. And I'm pleased to welcome Shubham, who recently scored a fantastic 695. I was a part of his journey, watched his journey from close quarters, and I know all the ups and downs that he went through. But it's quite gracious of him that he's here to share his entire journey with all of you candidly, so that anything out of his journey can help any one of you succeed, and which is why he's here. So about his score, he scored a 695 with a massive Q90, 100th percentile on Quant. He maximized his strengths there. He scored a V84 and a DI80. Remember, he was starting at a 625, so this is a 70-point improvement, which is a really good improvement if you see, right? And he was starting at a Q84, so he improved by 6 points there. Massive improvement on Quant. He was starting at a V81, so he improved by 3 points on verbal. And his DI started at 80. He was actually doing really well on the preparation front and the mocks. But of course, we'll hear from him as to what was it that he could not replicate the same on the test day. Nevertheless, his overall achievement is worth celebrating, and which is why he's here. So welcome to the session, Shubham, and thank you so much for doing this. How are you?
Hey, thanks, Dhruv. Thanks a lot, Dhruv, first of all, for inviting me here. Pleasure being here on the eGMAT platform, of course. Swing super good. I think it's been a long journey, and it ends with a 695. So yeah, super happy about this score.
I'm glad. So Shubham, as I said, I was a part of your entire journey. You were a part of the last mile push program as well, right? Of course, we'll discuss about this in detail a little later. So there's a lot to unfold, and just be candid and share everything that you can with all the GMAT aspirants watching your video right now, seeking inspiration, right? So Shubham, before we begin, I know when you saw the score 695, you immediately messaged me and we both were elated, right? But let's go to the beginning of things, right? So one, share your brief background with us, academic and professional, and then we try to understand what prompted you to take the GMAT and go for the MBA.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe I can start with a quick round of introduction.
Sure.
So I'm Shubham. Did my engineering in metallurgical materials engineering from NIT Jaipur. This was back in 2021. Joined a consulting firm straight after that. Have been working there for the past almost 3 years now as a consultant. And yeah, I think now that I've worked in the consulting industry for almost 3 years now, I feel is part of the next phase of my career. And a G like a no-brainer, right? And I was more inclined towards the international B schools. So yeah, so I think GMAT was the first step, and yeah, here I am with the GMAT scores.
Great. Thank you so much for the background. Right. So let's move a little further, okay, in your journey. Now that you knew you wanted to take the GMAT, wanted to prepare for it, the first step is always to figure out which course will fit you the best, right? That's a very important step.
Correct.
Take us through your process on how did you zero down to choosing eGMAT as the prep company that may fit you the best.
Sure. So I think when I first started thinking about the taking the GMAT, I think there were multiple courses online, and I think of course, eGMAT was one of the more prominent sort of coaching companies out there. I heard a lot of good reviews online, as well as some of my friends as well who had earlier taken the eGMAT course, and I saw the platform. I think I had a quick call with one of your consultants as well, which sort of
Mhm.
solidified my belief that I think this would be sort of the perfect course for me, right?
Right.
I had a very deep interaction with them in terms of the course, the timing, and I had solved a few questions just to familiarize myself with the GMAT sort of platform. So yeah,
Right.
I think that's when I realized I think eGMAT would sort of be the perfect partner for me in my GMAT journey.
Right. Right. That's nice. So now that you are already a part of eGMAT, right? Let's dissect your sectional journey one by one. Let's start with Quant, the hero of the session today, right? 100 percentile on Quant, not a mean feat. Not many people do it, despite Quant being their strength, right? You were starting at a Q84, did indicate that you had all the required skills to go and ace the quant section, and you did it in style, right? Q90, 6 point improvement. Uh, so there were still some gaps. What gaps did you identify when you started with the quant journey, and what things on the course helped you improve from a Q84 to a Q90?
Sure, absolutely. So I think as you just mentioned, right, being an engineer, I always felt good with quant, which I think is indicative from the score which I had, I think a Q84. But then again, I didn't realize to reach, let's say, the 96 or the 90th or even the 100 percentile, there were still some gaps which I identified. The first one being, I relied more on intuition. Once again, I had never studied formally for quant before studying for the GMAT.
Right.
It was just basis my memory with what I learned back in school. So I
Right.
think there was a lot of process gaps in multiple sort of topics such as permutation and combinations, which I
Right.
identified. Once again, the easier the medium questions, those were easy, but then again, I was able to solve them. But then again, when it came to the hard
Yeah.
questions, I think proper understanding of all these topics was absolutely essential. So
Right.
yeah, I think that's when I sort of decided to complete the quant module. And
Mm.
yeah, so I think that's just to solidify my concepts. That's where I think eGMAT courses helped me a lot, along with, of
Right.
course, the multiple questions that we have on
Right.
the platform.
Right. Right. Uh, the eGMAT quant course is comprehensive, right?
Yep.
There's a lot to cover, but I see that you leveraged something called the Pace Engine really well. You're one of those few people who I have seen save more than 50 hours on the quant prep using the Pace Engine. To just give you an example, here you go, right? Look at this. You've saved 12 hours, one third of the time on just one section, that is number properties. Overall, you saved 50 odd hours. So just help us understand, how did the Pace AI help you in saving those countless hours? Because time is of a lot of importance in the GMAT prep.
Correct. So as you mentioned, I think time is super important, especially for a working professional like me, where every hour sort of counts. So every hour that I could save is something that I could devote more towards the GMAT prep. So Pace here, I think, is one of the best features that we have on the eGMAT platform, wherein before every course or before every topic, you're asked to give a diagnostic quiz, and the AI sort of assesses whether you are, comfortable with the concept. It's only when it sort of helps you bypass those courses and you can move
Yeah,
on to the next topic, essentially, right? And once again,
correct.
it's not just like there are only one or two questions. For each topic, the diagnostic quiz, I think, has more than 10, 12 questions, more than two, three
Correct.
questions for each sort of type of questions in that topic. So that gives you that peace of mind as well that I am actually very good at this topic. Is only when the AI is
Yeah,
recommending that I sort of skip that. So I think it has been
correct.
a really good tool in my quant GMAT journey to sort of save
Right.
that time and where you can apply it somewhere else
Right.
in the journey as well.
Understood. Understood. Shubham, you are an engineer, and of course, quant is something that you, I'm sure, are really good at. The numbers show that. But when you're already good at something, there comes a sense of overconfidence, which I honestly never saw in this journey. Of course, you had two stints, right, with the GMAT and with eGMAT, of course, right? One with the classic edition, second with the focus edition. This time when you came back, I could sense that determination in you. I could sense that, I'm not leaving any stone unturned this time. Even if it's quant, I will not tell myself that I know everything. I'm an engineer. I'll go through every possible thing and cover every single thing. Right? So you were so determined, right? And this is also pretty evident, not just in your course. We just saw that, right? Your grades are fantastic. But let us just go to your Scholaranium stats, right? Your Scholaranium stats, let us
Right.
just see them. I mean, it's just loading. So here they are. So let's go to the hard questions. It's way above the threshold, right? The Scholaranium was predicting you to score upwards of Q88 for sure. Look at this, right? Let's take a look at these. I mean, always up above the threshold, right? There was a little dip here, but I know how hard you worked to get your word problems in place, right? So a lot of diligence. Look at this. Couple of dips here, but those dips are also above the threshold, right? I really want to understand from you the role Scholaranium and cementing quizzes played in your improvement, because you seem to have done them diligently, right? So just take us through that.
Sure, absolutely. I think once again, as you mentioned, it was quite a sort of a roller coaster ride for me in quant as well. So the second time when preparing for the GMAT FE, once again, I completely let loose of the fact that, wanted to start from the very beginning in the quant, just trying to understand each and every concept, even if it's like a small concept or an easy question, I wanted to solve all of them.
Yeah,
And once again, I think semantic quizzes is something that you do after you've completed all the courses, right?
yeah,
As the name suggests, it helps you sort of solidify your concept, and it sort of reinforces the point that you have learned the concept, but it's trying to apply them in a time constraint and do it in a manner where you are crunched with time. I think
yeah,
that's and once again, you have to solve more than you are also solve. I think more than 5 or 6 semantic quizzes is only when you sort of move on to the next uh,
yeah,
sort of module.
yeah,
Right. So yeah. So I think it has been absolutely crucial for me. It's important. It's one thing to know the concepts, but then again to apply them in a fashion where you crunch with time is a different thing. I think that's where cementing quizzes actually helped me a lot. And
mm,
Scholaranium as well. I think the entire dashboard is very intuitive, and you're solving the questions. It gives you such an analysis of all the question that you solve, the time which you have spent on solving a question, and even if you have solved it correctly, was
yeah,
it have you done it in the stipulated time of let's say 2.2 minutes, or is it above the threshold? It gives you that kind of data, which
yeah.
helps you prepare, a bit more strategically for how you take on the actual marks.
Understood. Understood. That's right. So a Q90 was something that I'm sure would have given you a lot of confidence during the test, because that was the first section that would have set the tone for the rest of the test, right?
Correct.
So let's move on to the second section, which was verbal, right? You scored a verbal 84, again a fantastic score. You did improve by good 3 points, right? I remember the previous time when you were working on the classic edition. I remember faintly that you weren't really able to put a lot of intensity out there on the verbal section, but this time, as I said, you were determined, right? So if I can just show everybody what your verbal stats look like, they'll again be really surprised to see that the Scholaranium was certainly predicting that you would score this kind of a score. You look at your hard last 20 questions accuracy. It is phenomenal. It is out of the roof. Look at this. How on earth can somebody score 85% accuracy on CR, right? And this is towards the end of your journey, towards the preparation. So this is how you had improved with a lot of diligence, right? So let's go through your CR journey, right? What challenges did you face with the CR section, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Sure. So just to give you some background, right, as you mentioned, so I've always been an avid reader in my life, right?
Okay.
So once again, reading has never been an issue for me. Uh, with I think the entire the verbal course, I think both for CR and RC, I felt I was at a decent place when I started off in terms that I
Yeah.
could comprehend or understand the passage. But then again, that was only applicable to the easy questions. When I
Yeah.
actually got introduced to the medium hard and the hard questions, is when I realized I cannot rely just on intuition. I'll have to
Yeah.
have a certain process which I'll
Yeah.
have to follow to get to the right answer. So that I think was like a realization to me that I actually have to work super hard to sort of build that process.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think eGMAT, once again, I think I think that's the first course which I did on verbal, which is called Master Comprehension. I think a
Right.
very short course, but then again, probably the most important course which I did in verbal to
Hmm.
sort of understand, help me understand as to how you can comprehend, large paragraphs in this
Yeah.
once again in the crunch of time and then to
Right.
answer those questions. Probably, yeah, the I'd say the best and the most important sort of module which I did
Right.
on verbal. Yeah.
Yeah. So the master comprehension course is underrated, to be honest. Many people believe, oh, this is just the basics. Why do I even need it? Let me tell you, Shubham was already starting at a decent ability. A V81 is not bad to begin with, right? And being at a V81 and still saying, that master comprehension is an important course, I think that's something that the GMAT aspirants, especially the ones already enrolled with us, should make a note of, right? Who are aiming for a higher score. Now let us just take a look at your statistics here. Okay, your improvement is what I'm trying to show. Okay, so let's go to the verbal bit. Skill data, where we have all the analytics. And now you'll be able to see your improvement, Shubham. Okay, let me just make this hard. Look at this. Are you able to see it, Shubham? Right? So look at this. You were starting at, as I said, decent 60% accuracy on hard questions. Look at where you were when you ended, 87%. Right? The time also slightly came down by good 10, 12 seconds. And these 10, 12 seconds go a long way, right?
Okay.
On the test, right? You can do wonders with these 10, 12 seconds. Look at your RC. Starting at again, decent, 53%. Ended up with 80%. Right? So tell us what you said you are an avid reader, but of course there are some strategies that you would have learned from the RC course that would have helped you. Any tips that you can give to a lot of other people out there struggling with RC?
Sure, absolutely. Once again, I think it's all about time management on RC. If I give, let's say, any person the RC and give them unlimited, I'm pretty sure they'll come up with the right answers. But then again, I think to do it in the stipulated time of, let's say, 6.5 minutes, or even 5 minutes, I think that's sort of the real challenge. Within RC as well, I think what really helped me is once again the master comprehension. That's the first thing that you'll have to do. Secondly, understand the type of questions that we can have. That's
Right.
absolutely important as well. And once again, I feel GMAT verbal is not about getting to the right answer. It's about eliminating all the wrong ones. So I think that
Right.
skill is super important as well. Instead of finding the right answer, it's important that you eliminate the wrong four answers and you automatically get to the right answer after that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Right. I mean that's a good perspective to have, right? Because this little tweak in your process and your approach can actually make a world of difference, right? And everybody can see already how Shubham improved with this particular approach and this particular process in his mind. Fantastic. So a V84, right? Was the test difficult? How was your experience with the test with verbal? Were questions similar to what you solved on Scholaranium, on the marks? How was it?
Uh, I thought it, as compared to the OG mocks, I think it was slightly tougher on the tougher side for me. I think once again, it was comparable to what we had on the eGMAT hard questions, especially
Right.
the CR questions. I felt that as if I have already practiced multiple of those questions, so that gave me that confidence that I've done it multiple times before. So I think this time I
Yeah.
can around I can do it as well. But yeah, I think in terms of the overall look and feel of the paper, I think it was very similar to what I had practiced before. I think both on the Sigma
Okay.
X marks and the OG marks.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. All right, so the now Q90 is done, V84 is done. Let's come to the DI part. Okay, since you were transitioning from the classic edition to the focus edition, were there any inhibitions in your mind about now what is this? What is this new beast? Right? What was your approach and your mindset towards DI, which was a new enemy in a new territory?
It was actually right. So if you remember in the classic edition, we only had quant and the verbal, and the
Yeah,
IR was just a section that we had to complete, but that was not part of the actual scope.
yeah,
To see the transition of actually including the IR to now the data insight section, to counter that to the final GMAT score, I think that was a bit of a shocker to me when I once again started preparing for GMAT FE. Once
yeah,
again, the questions were very, very different, right? Apart from data sufficiency, all the other questions, be it two-part analysis, be it the MSRs, be it the graph and tables, was something which was completely new. And
mm,
I realized I had to put much more efforts in the DI section just to get
mm,
accustomed to the new type of questions that we have.
yeah,
So I think starting off with the GMAT FE, I think that was probably the biggest challenge which I faced in DI. But then again, I think I just knew that I had to practice a lot of questions to for me to get comfortable with it on the actual test end.
right, right. And I think also, do you believe that once you uh, hone your and refine your skills on verbal and quant, DI becomes slightly easy? Do you agree with that?
It does actually. So right. So for example, the MSR questions. Once again, it's very very verbal heavy. It's quant heavy as well. But there's a lot of data that you have to read through, which you can only do once you are very, let's say, good with RC, right?
Yeah,
So and once again, quant or for all the data sufficiency questions for all the calculations, you have to be good with quant as well. So I think
true.
data insights, it's a very good mix between quant and verbal,
Mhm.
while of course having its own sort of charm in in the GMAT FE.
Yeah,
Yes, so yeah. So I think you have to be good with verbal and quant to sort of score well in the DA
right,
section.
right, right. What part of the DI course at eGMAT you found the most helpful? What feature of the course was something that you found was really important in your improvement on DI?
Right. So essentially two factors, right, which I felt, or two parameters which I felt were actually both absolutely sort of essential for my GMAT prep. The first
Yeah.
one was the concept.
Mhm.
Since DI was a completely new addition to the GMAT FE,
Yeah.
and so there were absolutely no question banks or no topics that were
True.
available online. So I think eGMAT was one of the few, I think, test prep companies which actually had such a huge bank of questions, which were very similar to what we had, what I actually faced in the real exam. And
Yeah.
secondly, the way the concepts were explained, right, the entire module, I think that was super, super helpful as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I think the sheer number of questions that we have in the question bank, that actually makes you feel comfortable and you realize that you have solved almost all the questions, all type of questions that can be expected on the exam day.
Right. Yeah. So I just checked. There were around 545, 544 questions
Correct.
on the Scholaranium already, which I think is more than enough if you do things diligently and wisely. So Shubham, you were doing well on the DI section on the mocks, right? We just saw your stats on Scholaranium also. They look pretty decent. You were all set to probably score a DI 82 or 83, if not more. What do you think did not go as per plan on the test day?
Right. So I think even in the mock test, I was scoring somewhere on the 98th to the 95th percentile in that range. I felt the exam day, I think I faltered on the time management. I
Okay.
think the last one or two questions I had to actually rush through and I had to just guess the last two questions, which once again, I think both of them were incorrect. So I think I faltered a lot on the time management. And
Mhm.
secondly, I think I spent way too much time on the MSR question as well,
Right.
which would have been okay if I had gotten them right, but unfortunately, I got them wrong as well. Uh, so
Okay.
yeah, so I had once again, even in the mocks, I think I had a very sort of good grasp on the timing, but for some
Right.
reason, I think I faltered really bad on the time management on the actual test day.
Okay. So what kind of an advice would you like to give to people struggling with time management? Anything that you learned from your experience that you would like to share?
Absolutely. So I think first of all, never stick to a question. If you're not able to solve them, let's say in 2 to 3 minutes, I think it's absolutely essential that you mark the answer and move on to the next one because it's gonna hurt you a lot in the later part of the exam when you'll actually have to rush through.
Yeah.
Secondly, once again, I think this could be a bit contrarian to what is taught while preparing for the DI section. I think for the
Mm.
MSR section, it's if you think you're not able to solve them in the next 6 to 7 minutes, it's best that you mark the answers and you move on to the next part. And only if you
Yeah.
have time remaining towards the end is you come back uh, to attempt that
Correct.
question,
Yeah.
which is something which I did not do, which I should have done. But I feel that I think it's a bit more forgiving the DI section,
Yes.
even if you get 2, 3 questions or even 3, 4 questions wrong, you can still end up with a high percentile.
Yeah.
It's a bit more forgiving in the sense that you can still have 3, 4 questions wrong and get a high percentile. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I think it's important that you move on to the next question if you're not able to solve them in the next 2, 3 minutes.
Understood. Understood. Thanks for those insights. Let us move on to the mock stage, right? This is a different journey altogether. The mock journey. All that you've learned now has to come, to the fore in those 2.5 hours. So help us with your the process of your mock journey. What would you do between two mocks to try and see an improvement? And what kind of scores were you getting on the mocks that helped you stay confident on the testing?
Right. Absolutely. So I think the mock test phase actually occurs after you've completed the semantic quizzes. So in the semantic quizzes, you are only solving 10 to 15 questions, let's say for a particular topic, in the given time. But then again, mock, once again, you have to solve everything in the exam conditions in those 2 hours, 20 minutes, and all the question types are all together. I think that's a different experience altogether. You have to
Yeah.
be very, very rigid on the timings. You have to be very focused throughout the exam duration as well.
Right.
So I think, as you mentioned, I started off with the 625. That was the first mock, sort of a diagnostic quiz which I gave. The
Yeah.
second mock, I remember, I think I had a 665 as well. I think it was one of the Sigma X mocks, I think I remember.
Yeah.
And in the last two OG mocks which I gave right before the exam, I had a 685 and a 695 right before the exam.
Mm.
Uh, so I think one thing which really helped me out is I think in the initial two tests, I was following a particular order, which was quant, verbal, a break, and the DI section. I noticed that I was not performing well on the verbal section for some reason, even though I was getting good scores on the sectional tests. But for some reason, I was not able to perform well when I was giving the full length marks. I think that's when I had a call with you and you mentioned that let's try changing the order this time. Let's
Yeah.
take a break before we, move on to the verbal section so that your mind
Right.
is a bit more relaxed. And so I think that helped a lot as well. So I think the mock journey not only helps you sort of build that stamina for sitting through the exam, but it also helps you understand as to which order you should attempt the exam in so that you can attempt it a few more times before you sit for the actual exam.
Right. Right. That makes a lot of sense. Right. So now that you just mentioned that we both had a word and we decided to follow a particular section order, let's speak about the last mile push program. Right. You were a part of it, and which is why I got a chance to closely work with you and be a part of your
Right.
successful journey. So how do you think what role did the last mile push program play in your entire journey? Because you were there in the classic edition attempt also and in this edition also.
Correct. So the LMP program, I think, was a super, super helpful part of my entire GMAT journey. So both for the classic and the FE journey as well. Once again, I think you were there throughout the journey. I think we together planned out the entire sort of preparation phase till the last day.
Yeah.
So once again, you get that one-to-one sort of connect with, of course, experienced consultants like you, wherein
Mhm.
and once again you give me real-time feedback based on my performance, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's something that really helped me sort of shape my preparation, adapt to the current performance in my preparation phase, and yeah, I think that's sort of another reason why I scored such a high score on the FE journey as well.
That's kind of you. But yeah, I mean, it was fun to be a part of this journey with you, right? We are coming to the end of this session, and before we leave, any advice or any words of wisdom that you would like to share with the fellow GMAT aspirants?
Sure, absolutely. Once again, timing is absolutely key here, right? So whatever timing strategy that you plan up before the exam, stick to it, and forget about the question once it's gone. It's no point thinking about that. And as a matter of fact, for the section as well, once the section or the question is over, just think on the question in front of you. And sure, I think the test experience for me as well, I think it was slightly different than what I was used to, because I was used to giving exams in my room, which complete pen drop silence. But then again, the exam center, even though the experience was completely smooth, but it still was very different from my setup at home. So I think be mentally prepared for that. It might not be, it will be different from your actual testing conditions. So I think you have to be sort of mentally prepared for that as well. And yeah, once again, I think what I did as well was I requested for some earplugs, which really
Okay.
helped me out as well on the exam day. So I'm assuming I think all the Pearson facilities have that
Yes, they do have.
have them available. You can either
Yeah.
request for some earplugs or some over the ears or noise cancellation headphones. So just before studying for the exam, just try both of them on. Just choose whatever suits you, and yeah, just be mentally prepared that it'll be slightly different than the actual testing conditions.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Thank you so much for doing this, Shubham. You were really candid in all the insights that you shared. I could relive a lot of things that have happened in the journey, right? While discussing everything from the very beginning. So again, congratulations to you on this massive achievement. Uh, on behalf of eGMAT, I wish you all the best for your next steps and the applications. Keep us posted so that we can celebrate more victories with you. Even though from the outside, unlike we were right in that field together in the GMAT journey, but it would always be a pleasure to know that you're doing well in life.
Once again, thanks a lot for being a part of my journey and being playing such an important role, towards the end. I think once again, super thanks to you and the entire EGMA team. I think you guys are equally responsible for this go as well. So yeah, thanks once again.
Pleasure. Pleasure, Shubham. Thank you so much. And with this, we end the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.